Welcome back to the seventh grade mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking about gatekeepers. Gatekeepers of many different types. In past episodes, we've discussed gatekeepers specifically for the black community. But in this episode, we'll cover a wide range of topics and applications for these people that want to get in the way and cock block every opportunity that you may have in life. One in particular that comes to mind is the music industry. For many years, there have been gatekeepers that were blocking and keeping out the sound of raw music. One in particular was hip hop. For a long time, hip hop music had many gatekeepers protecting the precious airwaves of the radio and music TV video from raw black music. But that changed with the democratization of music and MP3s. MP3s really changed the game for much of the music industry for people of every type. And when the MP3s were first released, there was a huge war against Napster and the music industry. And they were all up in arms about this guy who was basically taking their music and putting it online for people to hear. And it really wasn't the artist, it was the record labels that were blocking a lot of this free flow of music. Now we're at a point where you see that the democratization of music has been a good thing. But it's been a double-edged sword because now where you can just pull up music videos on YouTube or on iTunes or any of these other platforms, there's such a saturation of music right now of mediocrity. And so when the gatekeepers were removed, all this mediocre music just flooded the market. And so now here we are. You get rid of these gatekeepers to the industry and you got a lot of mediocre nonsense.
That's a complicated conversation because a big part of that is the music industry. When you deal with the industry, the people in charge don't know what's hot. So they let a lot of bullshit get through now because they realize that, okay, the music is very powerful. It's an inspiration to a lot of people. It's enlightening. It's educating. It's a number of things. So the music getting through now is mediocre. It's bullshit. Straight up, mumble rap, whatever you want to call it. A lot of that stuff is garbage. But the reason it's getting through is because the hip hop we grew up on actually changed the world. You and I grew up on Public Enemy. You and I grew up on KRS-One. You and I grew up on different stuff. So, yeah, definitely. Ice Cube NWA, Fuck the Police, and shit like that. You had Paris coming off the West Coast. The Devil Made Me. You had Intelligent Hoodlum coming off the West Coast.
Far Side.
You had people come off the
Tribe Called Quest.
Yeah, Far Side, West Coast. Tribe, East Coast. Then you had
Leaders of the New School.
Don't forget the X-Clan. Leaders of the New School. And so when you recognize, what you're saying is the gatekeepers getting out the way. I'm saying just the opposite. I'm saying these gatekeepers back and let this bullshit through. And anybody with a real message, if it's a real message, they're not gonna let it through. You still got Dead Prez out there. You still got David Banner out there. They're doing their thing independently. But you don't have where you had, okay, when we were kids, there was hardcore hip hop. There was two types of hardcore hip hops. You had hardcore hip hop as in gangster rap or sex rap, or hardcore hip hop as in educational hip hop. Super, like, okay, KRS-One,
militant music.
Yeah. And so when that stuff, all of a sudden, when they realize we can control what gets out there and people still buy it, when they realize that late 90s into the early 2000s, you had a lot of bullshit start coming through. And even some of the groups I love, like, we love Wu-Tang, but Wu-Tang would not have made it in the early 90s. You know what I'm saying? You had to have a super message. KRS-One coming out there and saying some of the stuff he said. So back to the point of the gatekeeper, I don't think they've gone away. I think they're actually straining it much more. I think they're stopping much more of the message from getting out there. I think the gatekeepers are there. You don't have all the A&Rs you used to have, and you got, like you said, there's a lot of different outlets out there. You got Master This and all these different things.
No, the gatekeepers now are wanting to control more. They have these 360 deals where they control the social media, the online presence, the recordings, the digital platforms, YouTube posts, everything.
You got people that are music artists who've only released one or two songs.
Okay.
And then you got music artists who've literally put out 25 albums, and you're like, how do you do 25 albums in 5 years?
But check this
You
out.
know, they're
So
literally
check this out. The danger of the gatekeepers now is illustrated by a meeting that was had in the Hollywood Hills in the mid 90s.
92. Yeah,
And this meeting between the captains of industry in the prison industrial complex and the music industry, they wanted to cement this perpetual adolescence concept in black music. And they wanted to push this idea of people that were childish and couldn't see past their own vices of drugs and
they had
sex.
to. Yes, they had to fill these prisons. They were building these prisons at an alarming rate. This was decided. This was planned. So when you deal with that prison industrial complex, you must understand that you got to fill them. So who are they going to fill them with? It wasn't these white kids in the suburbs. It was black folks. So when the whole East Coast West Coast thing, when the gangster rap got out there, it's crazy that you can hear gangster rap on the radio. You would hear "fuck the police," but they would take the "fuck the police" out. You would hear this West Coast gangster rap on regular radio stations, but you would never hear KRS-One on a
because
pop station.
gangster music and any kind of music that pushed dope dealing and violence
Yes,
supported the narrative of the true gatekeepers. So you had tiers of gatekeepers. You had the
yes,
A&Rs and you had the people
yes,
above them. The people above them, the executives that worked with the prison industrial complex, are true gatekeepers because those people work at the behest of reptilians. So therefore, these people we're talking about
slow
are
down.
no. These people we're talking about are reptilian booty scratchers. These people
No, no,
push.
I wasn't going there
Wait,
yet. I'm
wait.
saying,
These people push a narrative to keep the black people and people of color and poor white people now on a certain track of retarded evolution.
look, you have you had groups like Arrested Development in the '90s, in the late '80s, early '90s, mid '90s. Groups like that, they were straight up hippies. They weren't even pushing the kind of narrative that you hear now. Look, check this
To
out.
be honest with
So
you, I wasn't fucking with
when
that
the,
shit, dog. Like I'm still a staunch hip hop head and never fuck with that shit. But go ahead.
oh no. I'm just simply saying that shit like that can get on the radio station because
It's
it's
safe. It's
I'm everyday
safe
people.
because it's safe
Yes, that's my point.
and it has a catchy
But
hook.
check this out. So when we so you had like Vice Lords and Disciples. You had these gangs coming from Chicago, and that shit got wrecked right away. We literally talked about this in another podcast where these cops killed these dudes, threw them in the river, and let it be known who did it because they didn't want that kind of behavior. But then you fast forward to 88, 89, the movie Colors comes out. Dennis Hopper, or a white man, puts that movie out.
And yes,
Then you
and the
got it.
CIA was assisting people like Freeway Rick Ross and other people to bring crack cocaine into the black
Drugs.
community because
Yes,
that was a supported narrative. See, the Vice Lords wasn't a supported narrative. So
narrative.
they could get rid of them. No
If you want an
problem.
example, if you want an example of how they weren't, watch all these documentaries on that Ford guy, Larry Ford, or the dude from Chicago who got all that government funded money. He said, "Look, I got about $800,000." He said he got $800,000. The Fed said he got six. We said we gave him $6 million to help black kids. He's like, "I never got that money." He's telling folks, "I never got that money." And so you go back to the Peace Stone Rangers and the Vice Lord's Disciples and the Peace Stones and all these guys. Um, those were the Peace Stones were the forerunners of the Bloods in LA, but that's another story. Long story short, when these gangs weren't supported by the government, they got squashed. Their money disappeared. But all of a sudden, when this narrative starts, okay, we need to sell drugs for the Iran Contras. We got these guys down here who we're unofficially supporting. So how do we get money to them? Well, drug money. The CIA is the biggest drug dealer in the world. So we'll give them the drugs. They'll push the drugs in their city. The drugs get sold that way, and then you get your cash that way. And we're indirectly funding you. But then we had to create a market. So what they did was create the market. They created the market through these different avenues, such as pushing these gangs. Created the market by creating this music that said, "Hey, smoking weed, doing cocaine is cool," because we've always had music about doing drugs, right? So that's not new. But and even then, they always spoken code. Bad Leroy Brown. Leroy Brown is about who? Nicky Barnes. That's we've always had songs about drug dealers on the radio, but it was always cute and shit. You know what I'm saying? So when they came out with this hardcore shit and realized, okay, if we push this narrative, if we control this narrative, they'll buy our product. And what is our product? Our product is drugs, and our product is the prison industrial complex. By filling this through crazy behavior, and it's simple. It worked. So when we talk about gatekeepers, what we're saying is that you have people who are pushing a narrative. You got positive gatekeepers too, who go out and find talent and like, hey man, this guy is a good idea, push him, Nelly this guy that, blah blah blah. Then you got negative gatekeepers who are like, oh, ooh, you're too militant, change your message. You're too intelligent, nobody's gonna go for that. People aren't that smart, they won't buy your product. And then you're like, since you are so desperate to become successful at entertainment, because that's the only thing black folks are allowed to do, entertainment, and that's it. Doesn't matter how many black scientists there are, it doesn't matter how many black astronauts, politicians, political figures, and none of that doesn't matter, is whether or not you entertain the masses. And when you recognize that that's a disservice, that athletes and entertainers are the only thing that we can do, that's not true. But yes, that gatekeeper shit is 100% real. When you got these hip hop artists who are saying real things, that's what made Pac special. Pac, he did both sides of the hip hop. He did both sides of the spectrum. He did intelligent rap, but he also did gangster rap. But even his intelligent rap was kind of half-ass intelligent. That shit didn't make
But
it
see,
on
look,
air.
hold on, stop. But now you have somebody who was a handler and was pretty much a overseer for the gatekeeper.
Yes,
So think of it like this. Think of the gatekeeper system in black music like slavery, where the people who own the ships, the Dutch and the Portuguese, those are the people who run the prison industrial complex and the music industry. And then you also have the people who own the plantations. The people on the plantations are record labels. Now, the overseer watching the Negroes in the field are people like Suge Knight. Suge Knight was merely an overseer for the prison industrial complex. So when you look at this,
why Puffy and Suge still alive?
Exactly, because they're overseers. Yes. They're overseers, yes. And you have to overlay the slavery narrative over it, and it fits like a glove. Seriously.
Now here's the deal. Now Suge done fell off. Suge fell off. He, his birds coming home to roost. That's not it. What it is that when the world changed, he didn't change with it. He still thought the same games applied. You must, if you really don't understand how powerful Suge Knight was in L.A. There's a couple stories that we talked about, but look up Rampart. There's a couple articles about the dirtiest cop of all time. Is Rafael Perez and David Mack. David Mack is one of the guys alleged to have shot Biggie Smalls. So when you look at these articles,
but these are the hip hop police though, and the hip hop police are just overseers for the prison industrial complex.
Complicated.
Not really.
Back in the 90s. No, back in the 90s. See, this. So what I'm going to lay on these people is that almost all the black cops in LA were Bloods. Literally, all the black cops in LA were Bloods. Probably, I'll say 80% of the black cops in LA were Bloods. So both these guys were Bloods. Suge is a Blood. Suge was buying off judges and buying off cases and doing all crazy stuff. When Suge had $300 or $400 million back when $300 or $400 million was a lot of money, he had infiltrated the police force. So that's when my brother says overseer, he's not talking about the hip hop industry. He's talking about like, okay, cool. You literally had straight up when you look up Rampart. Remember the TV show The Shield? It was based on Rampart, where you had all these dirty cops. These are the white cops were dirty too. So,
but overseers, and their goon squad that would hunt down runaway enslaved Africans are the precursor to the police. They became the police.
Officer, overseer.
So now you have these people that continue this slavery narrative in the form
legacy.
of a business that now has an LLC, that now has a county commissioner, that now has a city hall, that now has a entertainment industry on locked and control, that now has black women now being sex kittens, which is MK Ultra, is
No, no, I
another
wasn't going there.
form of
The other
control.
one, I don't forget about the new one they got where they tattoo the women next to their vagina. They
That's
actually brand them
Nexium.
next to their
That's
vagina.
Nexium, and that's a sex cult. Listen,
Nexi,
no,
yeah,
hold on,
yeah,
stop.
that's it. I couldn't think of the name. Nexi.
Hold on now, because within this society, you have secret societies, and you have death cults, and you have sex cults, and all of these serve a purpose under the umbrella of secret societies. It's all related, but
Well, the
we're
issue is
talking
this.
about gatekeepers.
Hold it. Let's break this down. Most of the time, when we talk about stuff, we talk from the black perspective because we're black.
But
What you got to
but
understand
on
is
this
that this
episode,
shit.
it is our effort to be independent of race, because it's
Yes,
very important that everybody listening understand that the things we're talking about
it
applies to
happens to
everybody, not
yes,
just in
yes.
America, in the world. Of the
Look,
world,
when
Craig.
you look at how many times have they caught these people from UNICEF or these people from these different child organizations funneling children to these different kidnapping
Talk
kids?
about it.
Happened in Ethiopia, happened in Haiti. The president of Chad came out. So when you see this stuff, you're like, oh, this is an aberration. This is a small
But
time thing. And then
wait.
you
How?
realize,
Hold up. Let me stop you right there. How is it the woman that was in charge of Amber Alert in Florida? Amber Alert is when you're driving on the highway and you see those
and the
highway
kid
signs,
disappears.
and they show a kid has been kidnapped, and they show the license plate number and the type of vehicle, and now you get it on your phone. The woman that was in
Yes.
charge of that for the state of Florida was arrested in Haiti for kidnapping little black kids, and she was connected to the Clintons. Mm-hmm. Yes, and she was
When,
also connected. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. I'm agreeing. When we tell you this stuff, you got to understand that. Okay, look it up. We try to give you shit so you can look it up. Like when you Google this shit, when we talk about uh, Epstein and his island, and we had talked about that North Island up in the Great Lakes.
Dude, how come
This shit.
Ghislaine Maxwell being subpoenaed and arrested has none of this stuff has like been major news? None of it. Even in during the height of quarantine, all this stuff was still hush. You had, the Jeffrey Epstein stuff that would bleep on the radar, but it was clear.
This
It
shit is
was
funny though.
clear
You had
that they
memes and shit.
let
It was still
him
entertaining.
be the scapegoat, the patsy for this bigger system of
And
control.
I'm gonna look up this guy's name. I don't want to give you the wrong name, but there was a black lot. This dude that was associated with Black Lives Matter
He was
on
a
a
he
large
was a
scale.
gay prostitute in Washington D.C., and he was killed by a gay Democrat politician locally.
Oh no, that's different. Different one. That same thing happened in L.A. Remember the dude in California? He was on his third black prostitute when the one guy escaped. So this stuff is happening during quarantine. This stuff again. This is why we tell you to watch the BBC news, because when you watch that news overseas, you see a lot of crazy shit in America where you're like, that's happening in my country.
You see stories that are
Yes.
3 weeks ahead of the stories before they come out in America about American topics, because major news outlets are told to keep hush and mum about it and let it, simmer before it becomes complete outrage. Yeah. So anyway, as I was saying, these stories that we're talking about today, this topic is independent of race. Now, the movie industry is another gatekeeper filled industry. For the longest time, it was hard to get your movies, independent film made. Now, during the 70s, the independent films were flourishing, but that
Hmm.
stopped after a while. And you had all these major tentpole movies. Everything became a superhero movie or a remake of something completely unoriginal. Every now and then you would have something that would break through and get through, like the Blair Witch Project or Quentin Tarantino movies or a Spike Lee movie. But what happened is you had these independent darlings of the industry that they would allow to tell stories like Malcolm X and Do the Right Thing. And every now and then you get something like Straight Outta Crooklyn. You know what I'm saying? Or Straight Outta Brooklyn, or a Matty Rich movie or something like that.
Matty Rich, yeah.
Right. But so now we're in this era where anybody can make a movie with an iPhone. And the fight is not against gatekeepers. The fight is against the attention of people and trying to get people's attention. But
how to get your stuff out there
and also
get it recognized,
and also
but
truth telling stories from the perspective of truth, because there's clearly a narrative by gatekeepers on television still and in cinema.
But they'll discredit you. The big issue is if you put out something that
goes against the narrative.
Controversial. Yeah, controversial ain't the word I'm looking for. Going against the narrative is different than controversial. Let me say this. What happens is that if they discredit you, remember when I'm just giving an example, please forgive me. Remember when Nat Turner, the movie came out, and oh boy,
yes,
all of a sudden
all this shit about him came out.
So please, I hope.
But it didn't before then though.
That's where I'm going.
When he was making big movies, when he was in the Liam Neeson movie,
he had been making movies.
Huge co-star role. The bad guy at the end of a Liam Neeson movie. Nobody had nothing to say about him. But not until this movie about a black revolutionary was about to come out.
When he put out Nat Turner,
they went and dug up this black woman that has some dirt on him.
No. He supposedly him and his friends had raped this girl in college. He had already paid a restitution. Again, he admits that something happened. So I'm not trying to discredit him.
I'm not on his side. I'm not on anybody's side. I'm only saying this is what I see happening or had happened.
Yeah, no, and the point being is that he had paid restitution. All of a sudden, she didn't, later on, she committed suicide or something. He's like, I'm sad about it. I wish it never happened. He actually comes out and talks about it. My issue is what my brother just told you. What Roscoe told you, this man had a career before that movie came out. Before that movie got big, he had a career. So where was she during that? Where was she when his career was getting started? She could have popped up then. She could have said something then. But of course, she didn't. She waited. Did she wait, or did they dig her up? And that's where the whole issue comes in, is that, look, he paid restitution. What more do you want him to do? And you got people who rape, molest kids, and do all this other shit, and nothing happens to them. And they have whole careers based on it. So,
okay,
when you go against the narrative, they do that shit.
Right. And so, let's talk about the mentality of gatekeepers. Gatekeepers are people who have a famine mentality. Gatekeepers are people who have some type of fear or insecurity. They want to use their position and advantage to keep other people under their control. Going back to music, for example, you have these artists within the past 2 years offering to put famous people, very famous musicians, offering to put upcoming musicians on their album or their mixtape only if they pay $1,000. So this is pay for play. This pay for play was active in the radio industry for a half a century. So you had payola, where people like Puffy, people like Death Row, people like Murder Inc., they would pay
Jay-Z, Murder Inc.
They would pay to have their music played over and over and over. And so now you see a continuation of that in the mixtape biz, where people now want to pay or will have people pay them to get onto their record so they can get break through. But as opposed to just giving somebody a chance or just hooking somebody up or just doing somebody a solid. This is gatekeeper mentality still, because a gatekeeper is afraid of your power, but they are comfortable where they are because they know that so long as they can suppress you and manipulate you, they maintain their status.
Not only that, but gatekeepers want you to go where it's set up right now. Like, oh no, don't go outside the lines. Or, hey man, I seen somebody just like you before, and they didn't make it because of this. Why don't you do this?
Because
You
they
see,
they only want to, they're only interested in doing it one way that's been done. They don't think outside the box. And so this gatekeeper mentality is what you see when an independent film comes out or a new different type of music comes out that everybody jumps on, the crowd or the public mob jumps on it. The entire industry pivots and goes in that direction. So there was a movie that was shot on an iPhone like 10 years ago, and nobody was shooting on an iPhone. And then all of a sudden, bam, you had all this shaky handheld camera work that was nauseating to watch in the movie theater. Like all of a sudden, everything was Cloverfield. Everything was like, go ahead.
how about after the Blair Witch came out back in 98, 99, whatever.
2000.
Everybody was. I thought it was like, well, never mind. But it was the fact that everybody kind of jumped on the whole mockumentary craze, where we're shooting a fake documentary about this, and they would use that. They were getting real information, half-assed, partial research, that kind of stuff. But
let me tell you from a filmmaker's perspective, what happened was it was the mini DV revolution when these little handheld camcorders came out and everybody started shooting with them, and they were doing everything possible to make it look like film, and it would always look like shit. They would like put film camera lenses on there, and they will record it back to film.
Direction. They went the other way.
Yeah. And I witnessed every iteration of that until the DSLR cameras came out, and then everybody that was a wedding videographer thought this some guy or gal that thought they were the Steven Spielberg of wedding videos was now a cinematographer. Like, no, you a videographer. You don't know nothing about lighting or lenses or film or any of these things. But all of a sudden, these people now want to be, these experts on like how to shoot a movie. But again, like I said earlier, the democratization of the industry brings in a whole tide of bullshit. And that rising tide with all the turds floating under it lifted a lot of ships, all the ships. And so here we are in this Fruity Loops mumble rap era where these simple ass retarded fucking beats are on the radio and they're just putting this shit out, and I'm like, oh, this is terrible. It's so bad that teenagers don't like it. That teenage children listen to this stuff is like, yo, I do not feel this, man. I don't like this shit. It's crazy. When you lose the teenage crowd, you're fucking up. You're really fucking up.
The whole idea that gatekeepers exist other than to keep the industry or keep society or keep whatever's going, keep the system where it is. That's what that they're discovering new things, but then they grab that and make it conform. Gatekeepers are about conformity, and they want you to fall within this. And they also hide shit. They're also able to hide negative behavior. The idea of what negative behavior is. So nowadays you keep reading about pedophile rings, you keep reading about sex trafficking, you keep reading about this. How is this possible in this day and age where you got cell phones and shit everywhere? You can't lose anybody now unless you want to. You know what I'm saying? Unless you just like, fuck it, I don't know where this motherfucker is. So now people are getting caught, but so this shit should be eliminated completely. It's not. It's because they don't want it to be eliminated. They know that poor people will lose track of their children on purpose. They know that this behavior of systematic rape, ritualistic sexual abuse, and all this other shit that is a theory really does exist. And they love to put that word theory at the end of it. So these gatekeepers keep that shit going. They make their money off that. On our last broadcast, we talked about Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton. We talked about the Black Lives Matter music. Those are gatekeepers for the black community. They make money and make their success off of negative situations. Well, you have other people out here in the society, and we're not just talking about police officers. We're talking about literal organizations who are designed to broker chaos. That's what they make money. They make their wealth off of chaos. CIA is one of these organizations. We talked about, we kind of brushed over it, but we talked about people in the CIA that if you do shit to kids, they got a special place for your ass because they're like, okay, fuck, that means this motherfucker will do anything. He'll kill men, women, and children. He don't give a fuck, or she don't give a fuck. We got a special place for him because we need that kind of motherfucker for certain missions. Or if we got a pedophile in office over here and we need to supply him with his drug, which is adrenochrome, which is kids, this motherfucker will go get them kids for this motherfucker.
Okay.
So
let's make it personal. Let's make it real personal. How many times have you been on a job where there was some person in a position of power that was standing in the way of your progress, and you had to go through hell and high water to move that person out of the way to get to where you needed to be? It exists in the workplace.
Sometimes you just don't get there. You don't get there because that person is you hear the term glass ceiling. We hear all these racial terms, but the fact of the matter is you got people in place that want you to jump through hoops, sell yourself out. A lot of jobs, if you don't go out with them, if they ain't got no dirt on you, they'll never get promoted.
Women have caught hell for decades, on jobs as a perfect example of gatekeepers.
Look, the whole hashtag Me Too, that is gatekeeper mentality. You got men forcing these women to have sex just to keep the job. Now, they don't say that to them, but they put everything in, they let them know, like, hey, shit, this is how Brooke Shields did it. But this is how, or they'll drop little hints. Or they'll go out drinking together. Yes, it's a real thing. And it doesn't stop with adults. And that's what you got to understand. So imagine if you're an 11-year-old and you're a child actor, you're supporting your whole family. Your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, everybody's being supported off the money that you make. And you walk in a room and they tell you like, oh, well, man, we're thinking you're too old for this part. We're thinking about somebody else younger. And you don't think that child will do things that they shouldn't be doing just to get that part? You hear rumors about The Rock. He made fun of Will Smith saying that I can't remember what movie it was. He said, this director meets me about this movie. He talks about a blowjob. I leave. I'm like, fuck that shit. He said, a week later, I see Will Smith on the poster. He's like, I'm not saying Will's gay. I'm just saying that shit happens. That's gatekeeper mentality. What that is that this person who is a mediocre person doesn't really have any power, but it will abuse a little bit of power he has just to take advantage of you, just so that you can get farther up, supposedly, not recognizing that you don't need them. So when we talk about these other outlets for music, when we talk about these other outlets for your art, that should mess up the whole gatekeeper.
Okay, let me give you an example.
Network, mess up the network.
Let me give you an example. So in the electrical trade, when you join the union, you start as a helper, and you're assigned a journeyman to work with.
Apprentice, yep.
And when you work with this journeyman, the situation can be good or it can be real salty, because sometimes you get these old knuckleheads that have been living off the fat of the land for a long time. And the problem is they come from an old, outdated way of thinking and doing things. So the apprentices tend to suffer sometimes because of this. And race does play a part, because you may be a black apprentice under a person who is not black and wants to make your life a living hell just because you're the new young guy, or maybe you're the new young black dude. And so I've seen scenarios where apprentices will be catching hell working with some old cracker redneck motherfucker. And they're just, trying to talk to them any kind of way, and, just making them do the most demeaning type of shit, within bounds, within the rules. And I've seen people go to blows over this shit. A buddy of mine was an apprentice under this real piece of shit guy. And the guy would just talk to him any kind of way. And one day, my homeboy got fed up with this shit. He was like, listen, man, drop your shit, drop your bag, drop your gear right now, because I'm about to knock your motherfucking block off. He said, you're not about to talk to me like this no more. And he did this in front of a whole bunch of people to fucking put him on blast, because this guy had a reputation of doing this shit to apprentices until he came across the wrong fucking guy. See, this guy, this journeyman, he had a gatekeeper mentality because he knew that this apprentice had to get so many hours working with him and that this guy was the thing standing between him graduating to the next level of his career. And so therefore he abused this shit. Carry my tools. Go lock up my shit. Go put all this away. You know, all this bullshit. You know, all this bullshit that apprentice doesn't really have to do. This guy used this and abused this.
It's basic hazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a form of hazing, and they
but
take advantage.
But
of people.
No. But it was hazing like beyond though. It went beyond that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I dig it.
I mean,
we've seen it. Yeah, no, look. The whole thing is that people are abusing their power. Abuse of power, period. That's what it is. And it could be something as simple as disrespect or something as major as sex or money or, you know, and you're trying to make a living. So you're like, well, fuck it. I got to support people. I got to support my family. You tolerate the shit. But now, like you said, people go to blows over the shit. If somebody pissed you off, you will go on break, whoop their ass and come back. That was it. But you don't have that kind of mentality anymore. People are just afraid of everything now. They're afraid to do and say anything. And because of that, that's where we're the place we are. People don't want to speak up. They're afraid. Fear is motivating everybody right now. And the prime example, shit, we see it in COVID. We see this shit.
So, but these gatekeepers, they're guarding access and status. They're guarding this with their careers because they're full of jealousy and self-hate. And so therefore, they're the barrier. They have been the barrier between access and moving to the next level. They're afraid. They're mental midgets, and they are all over the place. Fortunately, these people are disappearing. Their positions are disappearing. So these people that there were so many A&Rs, like Duct Tape said earlier, in the 90s, in the early 2000s, and that job just started to disappear. And you started to, you know, see more and more of this independent music all over the place because of social media. But check this out. I laugh now when I see these goofy little ads on Craigslist. And you see them mostly in large cities, but you see them really in cities that have a music scene like Atlanta and Nashville and Los Angeles and New York. And what you see are these ads for people who don't know better. And what I'm talking about, they're ads for, I saw this thing, it says, I want to manage a trap artist. What? You want to manage a trap artist? Why? Why do you feel like you need to, what is it you bring to the table? And why specifically a trap artist? You see what I'm saying? Like I'm reading through the lines. I'm looking right through this bullshit. I'm like, this person he's a manipulator. She is a manipulator. You know what I mean?
They're preying on somebody. A type of person, type of mentality. They recognize that I know if you're doing this type of music in this day and age that you're susceptible to my bullshit.
Listen, I shot a music video for Gucci Mane. All right. And when I shot this video, my job on that video was cinematographer. And I was working for this woman. She was the director of this video. And she was a gatekeeper. This entire shoot was a battle of wills. The entire time, she and I bumped heads because she felt threatened by my intelligence, my skill and experience, and my presence. And I told her, I said, listen, I can take my gear and I can leave, and you can go find somebody else to deal with this. And Gucci Mane will be real fucking upset. I said, but we're going to make it through this day, and you're going to pay me my money, and I'm going to go home. This shoot was very stressful, unnecessarily so, because I am a conscious individual, and I saw somebody that was attempting to manipulate myself and my crew members. As cinematographer, you are the captain of the crew of everybody on the camera department, all the technical people on the set. You're the captain of that. And so you're responsible for everybody underneath you, right? Or everybody that's working with you. And so this person, this gatekeeper woman, this reptilian booty scratcher, she made everybody's life a living hell because she was used to doing things a certain way that was outdated and antiquated. And here we are, this young, fresh crew that had with all these ideas about how to make the best music video possible. She was going railing against that. Yeah. Oh, it was a trip. Oh, yeah. So I've had my run-ins with these gatekeepers before.
Look, what people don't get when it comes to this situation is that sometimes people don't even recognize it. It's so commonplace they don't realize they're being fucked with. It's such ingrained into it. I remember when I first started working at my job, that's how it was. You basically had to kiss ass, and you didn't get overtime, and people didn't want to train you. Yeah, that's on a small scale, but it gets bigger, and people just don't realize this shit, and you become accustomed to it. So, look, the point we're trying to make is that you're able to do this. You're able to make this shit without gatekeepers. You're able to make this shit the American dream was to get a house and start a business. Remember that was the American dream. And then the 80s show up where they teach you that you need to go to college and get a job with corporate America. And we were bamboozled. I always talk about black people in this case, but the fact of the matter is that we were all bamboozled into thinking that this was the way to go. And with that being the case, you didn't want to start your own business anymore. You thought that was a bad idea. It wasn't a safe bet. And all that did was
you talking about loans.
it created
small business loans.
Yes. Back in the day, everybody started their own business. Now you can't do that shit no more. You can, excuse me, let me correct that. You can do that shit
with your own money.
Believe in yourself to do it. Yeah. You get your own money, you start the shit, you get a down payment. None of that shit happens anymore. You're taught even in college. The shit I've been helping people start their own business, learning shit. The shit I learned in college, I ain't gonna say it don't apply, but they're telling you that you got to do a business plan. They're telling you got to do this. Look, when you go to a bank to start a business, all they give a fuck about you is having your 10%. And if you want a $50,000 loan, you need $5,000. The same shit you would have came up to bond your cousin out of jail, you can take that shit and start a motherfucking business. But that's not what you're learning. And again, the other thing that I learned now is about business credit. I had started doing something and I just didn't complete it. Looking back, I should have done it. But your business credit, set up your account in the name of your business. Start your LLC. You got kids. Start an LLC and turn it over to your kids. And that way, when they're 18, 19, they have business credit. You set up a bank account and you pay bills out that bank account under your LLC. Then your credit score for your credit score might be 400. It's terrible, but your business credit will be 700, 800,000, whatever it is, and then you can just get a loan and start the shit you want to do. But that's not what we're told. What we're told is that you got to go to work, and you'll never save up enough money to start your own business. So stop doing that. Stop thinking that. That's that gatekeeper mentality, and what that does is create a situation where you're dependent on the bureaucracy, you're dependent on the society, and then you feed into it. But the American dream back in the day was you get your house, you start your business, and if you did work for somebody, it was just for the benefits. I remember the barbershop we went to as a kid. He had like 4 or 5 jobs. He said, yeah, I'm a custodian, but I only do that for the retirement and the healthcare. My main stuff is my business, is my barbershop, and so, when you saw an old black guy like that, you thought, he's an idiot. No, he was using the system. He was a hustler, but he was like, look, I got retirement, I got full health care, but I still make all the money from my business. And I got 4 or 5 people with barber chairs in here paying me every month rent. I own 3 or 4 houses over here. Since he doesn't look, the problem is we're so based on whoever has the Gucci belt on. We're based on who looks like money. So what you must understand, a broke person don't know what money looks like. So you don't recognize that man is well off. All his children are educated. His wife is in a good shape. They own all their cars. They own their property. That was the goal. And when that goal got co-opted by some other vision that you must go to college and you must get a job for corporate America. And then here's the other problem. we're talking about gatekeeper mentality. I'm a labor leader at my job. According to them, for you to have my job, you must have a college degree, right? If you wanted to get hired at my job, you got to have a college degree. But what happens if somebody has more seniority than you and they bump you? Because we're union, they can bump you. That person ain't got no college degree. So how is that person doing the same job as me? Is because you don't need a college degree to do this job. But that's that gatekeeper mentality. They throw obstacles. You need to jump through this hoop. Black man, if you don't have a degree, you're nothing in this society. That's all bullshit. And that's what, and gatekeepers lay bullshit in front of you. And when you get the shit on your shoe, you can't get it off because it's bullshit over here too. It's a hustle. It's all designed to make you dependent on something that you don't need to be dependent on, and to stop you from actually living up to your full potential. Because if you live up to your full potential, you too could be a billionaire. If you live up to your full potential, you too can be a millionaire. You would threaten the people at the top. And we all know this, for capitalism to work, you got to have a bunch of poor folks. Without poor folks, this capitalism shit don't work. Because if we're all millionaires and we're all well off, they will tell you to go fuck yourself and not go to work. They can't have that now, can they? So you got to watch that shit.
All right, let's talk about somebody who raged against the machine back in the day. Literally, his name was Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla went up against major gatekeepers. He went up against Rockefeller money and Westinghouse and Thomas Edison. He went up against the original gatekeepers. He was so radical in his thinking, in his designs, in the tech that he brought. It was so game-changing. It's things that we take for granted today, like a cell phone, like radio, fluorescent lighting. All these things were created by a guy who thought outside the box, who went against the gatekeepers. But eventually, it was his demise that was brought about by gatekeepers. And when he died, all of his documents, all of his equipment were stolen by those same people that seek to control him and keep him out of mainstream society. Renewable energy.
The problem with him,
go ahead.
You got to remember, the problem with him was, you remember Westinghouse there's a thing called direct current, alternating current. He invented alternating current. What we use right now in our plug, when you plug your lights in, when you plug your computer in, that's alternating current. Thomas Edison invented direct current. Current wouldn't work on this level. Yeah, it's essentially a battery. So what you understand, for that to work, there's not enough metal.
When you plug your cell phone into a wall, thank Nikola Tesla for that.
Yeah. And so the person who got the patent was Westinghouse. So Westinghouse attempted to give him stock. And Nikola Tesla, not being a businessman, didn't give a fuck about it. Oh yeah, whatever. I could invent something else. But the fact of the matter is, free renewable energy, the stuff that's going on right now, all the stuff we got now is because Nikola Tesla. And the point my brother's trying to make is that you have people like Edison who want to take over, who are like he wants to be like J.P. Morgan, the steel guy. He wants to be like Ford. So he was trying to create a situation where
these are oil barons. These guys were oil and coal barons. And so here was Tesla coming along with this free energy that you could draw out of the ether, out of literal air, and use it to power homes. And you had all these people, these scientists that were on the payroll of these oil barons and these coal barons that were paid to basically decry anything that Tesla invented or any of his concepts.
Science and doctors are bullshit. When you hear them say practicing medicine, the reason I'm telling you they're bullshit is because once they realize what they learned wasn't shit, they try to cover it up.
Wait. Don't forget about archaeologists.
Whoa, slow down. We're just talking about gatekeepers right now.
That's one of them.
A prime example of, we'll table that, my brother. You must understand. Look up the guy Diesel. I can't think of his name. Louis Diesel, whatever. When you realize that Diesel was invented by a French guy, he was from the French Alps. Long story short, he invented diesel fuel as an idea. The diesel engine. He's like, look, I invented this for farmers. This way, farmers who are in the middle of nowhere don't have to worry about oil and gas. They can create their own fuel from their own corn and their own harvest. Right? French guy, over 25 years ago, 150 years ago, he invented this shit. So he goes to the World's Fair and he's about to show off his new diesel engine that doesn't need gasoline. What do you think happened to that nigga? They found his body in the English Channel.
Right.
This is a true story. I'm not making this.
No,
I think his name is Louis Diesel, but I don't want to say it wrong, so please forgive me. I don't want to use the wrong shit. But when you look up Diesel, the guy that invented it, what happened to his ass? So fast forward so many years, so diesel now has to be made from petroleum. And again, depending on the oil people. But now, fast forward now, we have biodiesel. You could actually go to like a Hardee's or a McDonald's and get their used oil and make diesel. Diesel does not have nothing to do with petroleum, and that is a gatekeeper. Like, okay, if you want, we don't want you to kill our industry or our business,
but eventually we're going to steal your shit and use your shit against you and make money off of it.
And sell it back to everybody. And your name is famous, but your family is broken. You dead, unless you got gills, motherfucker. So now let's fuck with this archaeology.
Yes, let's talk about pyramids and the concept of time as we know it, and this false narrative that nothing happened before 5,000 years ago.
Okay, here's where things get really complicated. So let's just talk about here's the narrative, and we kind of touched on it before. The narrative is that Asians came over the Bering Strait, came into North America, and worked their way down and populated South America. Now, what they used to say was 5,000 years ago this happened, the Bering Strait. Well, look, the Bering Strait that couldn't have happened because they keep finding, archaeologists keep finding stuff in North America and South America that's older than that. So, wait. So now they say, well, they crossed over 6,000 years ago. Then they find what's called the Folsom tribe in Southeast America, where they're 11,000, 14,000 years ago. Oh, wait. So they came over 12,000 years ago. Every couple of years, they push this Bering Strait thing back. Now, here's something that we do know. There were two major floods. You know, the Noah's Ark flood. There were two floods that took place. One was 12,000 years ago. One was 14,000 years ago. Look it up. Damn near the whole world's flooded. So that means that so they push. So scientists won't acknowledge them floods exist, but they're like, oh, wait a minute. So the people came over the Bering Strait 16,000 years ago, and guess what? They keep finding finding dig sites that are older than that. So that's when they started saying now people came over 23,000 years ago. So now here's where it gets even more mixed up. So now they're trying to do this DNA testing. So they find people's bones and stuff. And so a lot of people up in North America, they do have some Asian DNA and stuff like that, and this and this. Well, then they find this cave in Mexico that is underwater, is over 13,000 years old, and that person is the oldest person they found with Asian DNA. But then they start going to South America, and the people in South America don't have this Asian DNA. What the hell? People in South America tend to be black, and they tend to come from like Hawaii, Australia, and those islands over there. And so they're like, well, how? Yeah. They're like, how the hell they get here? New Guinea and shit like that. But these people down there have different DNA, and these sites are older than the sites up north. And they're like, that couldn't be the case. That couldn't be the case. So what happens is every so often they find out new shit, but they got to bury it.
It's being buried because of ego. And the people that a gatekeeper are protecting a narrative.
Yes.
Now, let me step in right here and talk about a human skeleton that was discovered in Ethiopia. That is 4 million years ago. 4 million years ago. 4 million years ago, this human existed that is not related to apes. So it throws a huge monkey wrench into the narrative that humans come from apes. Now here you have this skeleton in Africa that is not related to apes. Oh, that's quite peculiar. Now, academia is having a hell of a time with this because it's fucking with their narrative. These gatekeepers to archaeology that have controlled this idea that people come from apes and that the Egyptians were built, the pyramids in Egypt were not built by black Africans.
Look, the other issue is when they use their carbon date. First things first, you can't carbon date rock. but you can carbonate the wood and some of the mortar, some of the other stuff around it. And so when they start doing that, that means that the pyramids are 9,000 years old, and that means the Sphinx is 12,000 years old. And so here's the other crazy part. We briefly discussed this in one of our other podcasts. Is that they found this ancient writing, this ancient Noah's Ark story, and in this story, the Ark ain't a boat. The Ark is a pyramid. And so they were saying that the people who built the pyramids built them to survive the flood. Some crazy shit, I know, but look it up. I can't make this shit up. So back to the other thing that throws off the whole narrative. When you read from the Egyptian writings, they're supposed to be 36 dynasties. According to white folks, there's only 9 dynasties or whatever. So they're like, where are these other ones at? They don't exist. We read in these hieroglyphics says 36 dynasties or 32 dynasties, but that couldn't possibly be the case because that would go back 50, 60,000 years. Again, anything before 5,000 or 6,000 years, the Catholic Church said doesn't exist. Because what you must understand is that a lot of them white folks wasn't doing shit before 8,000 years. And some people say they didn't even exist. Now, when you read this other stuff, when you read these about Mu and some of these other locations, they're saying that white folks and black folks and Asians were around 50, 60, 70,000 years ago. But like I said, we're not going there right now. We're just going by when they find shit, they bury it. The deeper they dig, the blacker the people get. All of a sudden, you got to change the narrative.
And the Catholic Church is part of this control system
parcel
that is controlling the narrative, that is the gatekeepers for our true reality, because these people that have been hiding pedophiles for centuries are also the people who are hiding the documents that survived the fire at the Library of Alexandria in Egypt.
Alexandria.
And they have them in the Vatican Library.
Look, like I said, I hate repeating stuff we talked about before, but the bottom line is this. If these 2 great floods happened, and we know back in the day, many years ago, most of even this day and age, most of our major cities are on the coastline. Most of our super smart people, scientists, they're on the coastline. So if the coastline floods by 32 feet and the flood goes from So New York is wiped out.
That's 3 stories. That's 3 stories. So just go to the bottom floor of your house and imagine another 2 stories up. That's water up there. Now look around your neighborhood. Water everywhere.
Everywhere.
Everything's underwater.
So just check this out. So all these smart people, all these people are killed off. So who's left? The people in the middle of the country who may not be as smart, but what they worship, what they believe, all of a sudden it's a hard reboot. You just erased all of academia. It's a hard reboot. Now all of a sudden people who ain't as smart, who ain't as talented, who inbred monkey motherfuckers are now taking over. So can you imagine that? Oh wait, it happened. So what you need to realize is that the reason that this gatekeeper shit is out there is to level the playing field for people who would not normally be on your level. When we talk about the ISIS papers, and white supremacy is bad. White supremacy is there to make sure that these people still existed. It was necessary for them to exist. That's sad. That's wrong. It's bad. I get it. So what you understand is that people did this shit to stay relevant, but people also did this shit because you wouldn't need the Catholic Church if all these people knew the truth. Why would you go to church? Why is this? The Catholic Church is a nation. You know, the Vatican, that's his own country. They got their own army and everything. So when you recognize that these gatekeepers keep irrelevant people relevant, that's how this shit works. It gives power to the people who should not have it. And the people that are smart, intelligent, that have actually ideas of who actually couldn't create a revolution like that Diesel dude ends up in the English Channel. Look it up. That's all I can tell you. Look it up, motherfucker.
So, again, these people, these captains of industry, these people that control religious institutions, these people that control the music industry, the movie industry, these people in your job, these people in your neighborhood, these people who do not want you thinking outside the box. But then there comes a reverse gatekeeper where you have people who spread false information, people who are paid to muddy the waters. What am I talking about? I'll make it plain. When you have people that are talking about shit like flat earth, when you have these people who start off trolling. This starts off as a troll, and then through telephone, the game telephone, this information gets warped and
It's
changed
warped.
until it
Hmm.
becomes something that's like a religious movement. And so you have the most,
It's
and then you have the most religious, you have the most militant
zealot.
hotep motherfuckers that are spreading the words of some white boys. And I'm like, hold on, bro. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. You rage against the machine all day long, but yet you didn't take the time to go and research the fact that this started as a troll on 4chan. So you gonna take the
Well,
words of some fat white boy sitting in the basement before you go and dig something up and read it like you did everything else that's brought you to this point. You know, I'm
Here's the deal with that. It's some deep shit about that. Here's what drives you crazy. Whenever people talk about philosophy, they don't talk about African philosophy. They don't talk about where these Romans and these Greeks got their information from. They just like Plato said this, Aristotle and Socrates said that.
and so
I'm
it
like,
is, and so it's
nigga,
law.
please. So exactly, that's it. So we keep looking for white folks to validate us. That fuck that. If you know what
No,
you're doing,
it's not. It's not even on white folks to validate us. It could be a Negro in a suit. It can be a Negro in a suit standing at a podium. So it's not a black or white thing. It is institutional control. That's
yes,
what
yes.
gatekeepers are. It's institutional control. And these gatekeepers come in different forms. And you see them at different checkpoints in your reality. And they keep that reality going that was beat into them. The problem is they have Stockholm syndrome. You don't.
They feel bad for their oppressor. They feel so bad for their oppressor, they keep oppressing themselves on purpose. Look, we beat up the victim, and then we love the rapist. We love the oppressor so much that, oh my God. And you've heard me say this in the past. My brother knows when I say black folks suffer from battered woman syndrome. Everybody in America suffers from battered woman syndrome. And I'm not talking about your sexuality or what I'm saying is that I remember when I got in a bad car accident one time, and I was upset because I'm like, hey, we need to go to court. Fuck it. They're not giving me enough money. And the lawyer said, well, down here in Oklahoma, they feel sorry for the insurance companies. I'm like, what? Yeah, like, he's like, look, people here feel bad for the insurance companies because they don't want their rates to go up. He said, literally, if you go to court, you're going to lose. And I'm like, how the fuck do you feel bad for the insurance company? They fucking you. But you're so worried about your rate going up that's the dumbest shit I've heard. But yeah,
No,
that's how we
no,
are.
no, 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 no. Those insurance companies are just lobbyists. All they do
I
is
know.
they're paying off judges. They're buying, but they do it in a way that looks, within the realms of
Respectable.
etiquette,
It's
respect of
subtle.
it. Exactly.
Yes.
I'm going to
Yes.
buy you this membership at this exclusive golf resort.
Look, I'll donate to your campaign so you can run for judge again. But just remember,
Yeah, it's politics,
who donated?
politricking. That's all that shit is, man.
It's-
But
it's so-
these are
it's-
gatekeepers.
Look, when the bureaucracy becomes bigger than the person, when the bureaucracy becomes its own entity, this is what happens. And these gatekeepers are the ones that keep it going. Then you got anti-gatekeepers, like my brother said, that spew bullshit and lies. But either way, you don't know who to trust. Coronavirus, prime example. It's become politicized. We don't know who to trust. All these different things are not by accident. When you play both sides of the fence, when you got people who are disseminating false information on both sides, what do? That's when you sit here and you get discernment and you read, and we talk about this shit. But these gatekeepers, they beat their ass. I'm old school. If you beat their motherfucking ass, they need their ass kicked so they can recognize that they're not significant. And how can somebody who's not more successful than you give you advice? Because that's how the music industry was. All these are failed artists or motherfuckers who didn't have talent, who couldn't make a beat. They're the ones giving you advice on how to guide your career.
That's a critic in the movie industry. In the movie industry, that is a film critic. A film critic is a failed filmmaker. Bottom line.
It's a lazy fan. Look, I know we're about to wrap the show up, but what we're saying is that you need to recognize a gatekeeper when you see it and use them to your advantage. Take advantage of them. Don't let them take advantage of you. That's what this is about.
This also is about awareness. look around your reality and see the people that are standing in the way of your progress. They could be your coworkers. It could be any person that is trying to tell you not to do what it is you desire to do within the realm of sanity. The person that is standing in the way of your promotion within the realms of, or within the bounds of the rules. Those are the people we're talking about.
They don't want you to excel. They don't want you to be bigger
because
than
you
the system.
are a threat to their
system.
paradigm. You are a threat to their paradigm. That's exactly right. So therefore, look around your reality, and basically you either signal these people out, work and do everything you can to get them out of your way, or remove yourself from that system entirely, like many people did in the music industry or in the movie industry. Get yourself out of that system and create your own platform or your own lane for you to work within. That's all I got. We out. Peace.